It's a great start. It's a great start.
Here we are.
Off and rolling, baby.
Welcome, everyone, to your favorite podcast, Woodworking is Bullshit. And if it's not your favorite podcast, well, it damn well should be. I'm your host, Paul Jasper, scientist by day, a woodworker by night. And I'm joined with my two fabulous, amazing, courageous, and honest co-hosts, Eric Curtis, full-time woodworker and content creator, and Mary Sy, AI designer by day, contemporary woodworker by night. We have another arousing show for you today. And Eric suggested this topic because he's got an audacious and authentic perspective to share with us today. Eric, why don't you start us off?
Audacious is one congratulatory word.
I tried.
Authentic, sure. I love the start, by the way. Just giggle fit right off the top.
Yeah, it's really great for a podcast where no one can see
It's a visual medium
anything.
where you're doing mime faces to make us laugh.
This is not my face. This is my normal face.
I was drinking prior to the episode. You guys were making dumb goo-goo faces in the video. And
I'm insulted. This is my normal face.
You know what?
Didn't say it. You said it.
A lot of people who are less brave than us use a canned record opening. We do it live every time, so you know how you have no idea what the hell it's going to bring.
One take, Jake, baby.
That's it.
All right, let's dive into it. So here's what's been on my mind to shift to kind of my personal experience over the last month or so. As some of you know, as you two certainly know, for the last year and a quarter, I've been primarily focused on YouTube as a means to kind of grow the business. And in that time, things have been going well. You know, it's certainly grown the exposure of the business, and that has become the central focus of the business rather than the objects, right? It's been the videos rather than the making of the things. And about a month ago, when I was down in Austin teaching a class, I made the decision that I wasn't going to put out a video that week. Now, for the last year and a quarter or so, I've put out a video every week.
Did you hit that last year?
I did hit. I missed 1 week when we started filming a new project, but I made that video up. So I did hit 52 videos last year.
That is a lot.
I'm very aware. And coming into April, I still had the intention of doing 52 videos this year as well. But when I was down in Texas, I made the decision to skip that week because I needed the time and the space to teach and to attempt to be in that moment with the students, right? To enjoy the process, to be a good teacher, to have a moment after a year and change where I was not split in two different directions at the same time. Simultaneously, as that week was unfolding and I made that decision not to put out a video, I got an email from a gallerist I work with who's putting together a new show. And she asked me if I had anything that I wanted to submit. And I realized that for the last year and a half, I've not made any objects that I would feel comfortable submitting to a gallery show. And that was kind of a real... it was a gut punch, you know, to recognize that the thing that I do that I love the most, the thing that I identify as is a furniture maker, is a maker of things. And for the last, we'll call it 16 months, 18 months, I've not made anything that I think is up to the level that I am capable of making things. And I just kind of hit this wall, like those two things happening at the same time. I hit this wall where, and I know this very much about myself, like I will push and push and push and do a thing until the moment I stop doing it and I stop giving a fuck about it. And I think I hit that wall where it was not that I don't care about YouTube anymore because it's a component of the business. And I enjoy the conversations that can come from it. And I'm grateful for the opportunities that have come from it. But I hit that wall of oh, this is not my primary focus anymore. And I'm currently in this mindset of trying to figure out how to redirect my creative energies to regain the creative momentum that I had prior to the decision to focus on YouTube. And the last piece that I think is gallery worthy that I made was October of 2022, right before I started doing YouTube. That was the planchette cabinet, the violin cabinet.
Yeah, okay.
That's exactly what I thought.
And that piece was in a gallery. And after that, like, I've made a table that, I mean, listen, I sit at every day. I eat dinner at every day. It's a table. It functions. It's not bad, but it's not a gallery piece. I made a commission that took 6 months because of all of the things that were happening in life. And it's a wonderful piece, and it's very specific to that client. And I'm thrilled. Yeah. And I'm thrilled that they love it and that they'll have that forever, but it's not a gallery piece.
How did you can I ask, how did you feel after you didn't release the video that week? Like, did you feel mentally less burdened, or like were you like happier or less?
It was there was still way too much going on for me to kind of process how I was feeling. I was still teaching. My girlfriend was with me in Texas, so we were trying to like spend time together and enjoy Austin. Then we got back, and then 30 of my closest friends descended on my house and on my city, and we were there for a weekend. And there's just been so much happening. But I think that's precisely part of the issue. Is I find the most fulfillment in the allowing of time and space to develop an idea and then try to execute that idea in a project. And I've not had that. And so I feel like I've been dealing with creative burnout, but I'm going to pull a Mary here and ask you both for a definition of burnout, because I don't know if the thing I'm dealing with is burnout or if the thing I'm dealing with is just the attempt to reclaim some kind of creative freedom.
Okay, well, the first thing I want to point out, Eric, that was a very interesting story, and I could feel the tension, like the pressure of having to put out a video every week for 52 weeks. But what I want to draw our users to is we're at the 7-minute 45-second mark, and the introduction to our episode is creative burnout. Usually we lead with a question. Well, the question is burnout. Eric said this week, he's like, I feel burnt out. I'm fucking burned out. Let's talk about burnout. So that's the prelude to today's episode. Do you feel burnt out? What makes how do you identify when you feel burnout? What do you do about burnout? So Mary,
I suppose my question would be, if we were to put it in the form of a question, if I could Trebek this shit for a moment, I'm wondering, what do you do when you hit that moment where you don't care? And we can label it as creative burnout. What do you do when you hit that moment of no longer caring or no longer having the energy to do a thing?
All right,
and
Eric,
how do you approach the following steps?
Oh, Eric, I have something that ties in perfectly to what you're saying, because as the good little scientist I am, the first thing when you said burnout, I was curious whether this is an actual like recognized thing in the psychology literature. Like, is burnout just
is.
It definitely is. And so, of course, I downloaded some references, some reviews on burnout from PubMed, and I read them.
Of course you did.
Of course I did, because, I mean, we all have anecdotal versions of whatever burnout is and how we dealt with it. But more globally, I like to think about things more globally in a more controlled manner. So burnout, let's start by defining it. And dude, I love when you're like, I don't give a shit anymore, because that's one of the pieces of burnout as the literature has assessed it. So this is from the psychology literature, right? Straight out of a paper. I should, as the good scientist I am. This is Christina Maslock and Michael Leader. They have defined burnout as a psychological syndrome. They actually call it a syndrome, okay, which got my attention. It's a psychological syndrome emerging as a prolonged response to chronic stressors from your job. And they broke it. They broke it into and prolonged, dude, 52 weeks. Okay. They broke burnout into 3 axes, like 3 dimensions, and they tend to follow stepwise. So the first thing that happens is the first dimension is exhaustion, an overwhelming exhaustion. All right. The second dimension is feelings of cynicism and detachment, Eric.
Oh, that's my MO, dog. That's my MO.
And the third axis is a sense of ineffectiveness and lack of accomplishment. So that follows detachment. So it sounds like you were definitely at stage 2. You were exhausted by the crush of having to put a video out every week, and you had cynicism and some detachment. And the question is, did you reach step 3, which is, did your video quality decline?
Well, I think so. For me, I know my creative process well enough, and I know my emotional processing well enough to know that step 3 usually comes before step 2. So the quality will decline, and that's what frustrates me to the point of detachment. And then what I do is I get frustrated by that lack of quality, and I go, well, fuck you guys. I don't need to do X anymore. And so then the teenage Eric comes out. And so what happened this week was, finally everything kind of calmed down, and I had a moment, and I took a deep breath, and I went, fuck this. And I took Wednesday off, and I haven't taken a midweek day off in, I don't know how fucking long, man. It's been a long time. And so I literally was just like, it's nice. What I want is a back patio space, because I haven't been able to find the time to work on the house. And I literally just took Wednesday off, and I went and I just laid a new patio.
Copied mine, by the way.
I didn't record it because I had zero interest. This is part of the separation. By the way, let's acknowledge that Mary lives in a house that has a patio similar to mine, but she didn't like. So to call it her patio,
you came to my house and you're like, this looks great.
Yeah, this is a great example of copying. I saw a solution to the problem I had, and I took that and I applied it to my situation. But that's not the point that we're getting at here.
Stop fucking bickering about your patios, you two. All right. So Eric, what was really interesting is that the third axis, which is like the suffering of the product or the performance decrease, for you comes as step 2 rather than step 3.
Yeah,
that's really interesting. Mary, how do you react to these 3 dimensions of burnout, like exhaustion, cynicism? Well, you're cynical all the time. So
excuse me, how dare you?
Not wrong.
I don't know what you guys are talking about. I've never been stressed in my life. I've never experienced burnout in my life. I am perfect.
Mary resembles that remark. Okay, so Mary,
what stage does narcissism come in?
That's step 4. Okay, Mary, go.
I think it's just, as you were reading them out loud, I was just like, oh my God. Because this week has just been like a culmination of everything. And like everything you read, I was just like, check. That makes sense. Yep. I mean, I already know that I've been burnt out for a while, and this week was probably like the worst point of it, I guess. The thing is, like, I feel like at my age, I'm able to identify when I'm in burnout. When I was younger, I definitely experienced it, and then I like had to, recover, maybe take some time off if possible. Like here, I'm actually able to identify. I'm just being kind of a hypocrite by ignoring it. Like if it was anyone else, I'd like any of the people that like I mentor, I'd be like, yeah, you're burning out. You got to like take some time off. But for some reason, when it applies to me, like I seem to be ignoring it. So I guess the question is like, how do I actively not ignore it? That's been my major struggle over the past few weeks. And a lot of it is like me mentally thinking like, oh, I can just like deal with it. I'll be fine. I'll like get over it. But it's become a lot more clear, especially after this week, that that's not the case. So I took today off and just did nothing basically. Or I went to the lumberyard, which is great, and just like had to take some time off. And I have a vacation coming up, which will be helpful. But sorry, to get back to your original question, I related to every single one of your points, and I can pinpoint when I hit that exact check mark, like on a timeline.
Is this the most burnt out you've ever been in your life right now?
I don't know. It's kind of hard to compare because I don't quite remember like what it was like before. It was bad for me at that time, at that age. So I'm sure it's like a similar sort of thing. I just think my level for burnout is probably higher now because I'm more capable at my job and more experienced. So I don't know if I can compare.
So, Paul, I'm curious. So, I run a small business, which is notorious for burning people out. Mary works in tech, which I think is also pretty notorious for burnout. You do work in the medical field in science, which I don't think is not notorious for burnout, but I don't know it quite as well, or at least it doesn't exist in the pop culture. Like, have you hit a point in your career, not necessarily in your creative aspects yet, and we can get to like commissions down the road, because I know you hit that point where you were like, I don't want to do those anymore. But have you hit a point in your career at any point where you were just like, fuck this noise, I'm over it?
Yes, grad school. It almost broke me. Like I was expected to work 7 days a week, and if I didn't show up
Yeah.
because, like, let's say my parents were in town for a weekend, and my parents were
Yeah.
visiting, my advisor would be like, "Where were you on Saturday? I didn't see you." And I'd say, "Oh, my family was visiting." And she's like, "Well, if they really loved you, they'd understand your commitment to science."
Yoinks.
And she had, there's no protection in academia. She has full say over whether I get my PhD or not. And I was already 3 or 4 years into it. So it's like either put up or risk not getting your degree after 4 years. So I put up. And so it was very, very difficult time, but that's not to harsh on my mentor. I have extreme gratitude, and she had great integrity, but she was a scientist through and through and through, and she wanted that out of me. And I did it for 7 years, but it almost broke me because I just enjoy life in many ways. Like I love science, I love doing it, but I wanted to do some other things. So yeah, that was the time I was most burnt out. But I'm happy to say that my current scientific employer for the last 16 years, I've had one job my whole life, and I'm still there. They are so fair and cognizant about burnout. They've always cared, so I've never experienced burnout since grad school. It's awesome.
That's pretty wild. That's rare, yeah. I think.
I love it. Yeah, it is rare. And I appreciate the hell out of my colleagues for that reason. They're awesome.
So what about creatively then? So in your woodworking, I know I don't want to preempt you, but I know you got to that point where you were doing commissions and you were just like, I don't want to fucking do these anymore.
Well, Eric,
I have no interest.
It comes back to what you were saying. It's like, I want to have a little bit of that free time to enjoy life on my own terms. I don't want to have to go in the shop every single night for 3 to 5 hours. I want nights where I can just be with my family. I want nights, Mary, like where you can just have like oysters on the porch and have beers and say fuck all to the shop. I want that kind of creative freedom to like do it when I kind of feel like it and not do it when I don't, because then I have 2 jobs. And so I did commissions for about 5 years straight, like commission after commission after commission after commission. And they were wonderful. And I don't regret the time, but having that pressure of always having a timeline and always trying to exceed your customers' expectations again and again and again and again. And it's just like too much. It became too much pressure. And I just want a little bit of more breathing room. And so that's why I stopped taking commissions for a year. Now I'm back on the commission train. I have one due in June, the beginning of June. I'm stressing about it hard. It's keeping me up at night. I was laying in bed at 12:30 the other night thinking, because it's got like puzzles and like trick mechanisms in it that I'm not very good at. Like I don't know how to build these things. And I was sitting at night. I was up at 12:30 at night, tossing and turning. It's a graduation present. How can I make this happen by graduation? I can't whiff on this. It's not an option. How am I going to get this done? And that's the stress I'm talking about.
So the way that you're talking about it is very clearly you're experiencing stress. You're experiencing a negative emotion, right?
Yeah.
But there's a very fine line between lying awake in bed at night at 12:30, wondering about this thing because of stress, and wondering about the thing in like this kind of joyous, like that
Sure.
zone, that wonderment, that thing. And I'm wondering if it's like, what is the thing for you that's taking it from the excitement to the stress? Is it the timeline? Is it the
It's the
expectations?
timeline.
The
It's the
timeline.
time. It's two things. It's the timeline and being forced to do something I don't know how to do on a timeline. I don't know how to engineer puzzle mechanisms yet. Like, it takes trial and error. I'll try this. Oh shit, that didn't work. I'll try this. Oh shit, that didn't work. I'll try option C. And it's like, not knowing what the timeline's going to be is stressing me the fuck out. I'll get there. I know I'll get there with time, but I don't have much time. That's what's doing it for me. All right. Sorry, Mary, I feel like we're monopolizing the conversation. Like, you haven't really spoken too much other than to say I'm burnt out as hell right now. Have you had any creative burnout in the
part
shop?
Of the reason why I'm not speaking. Like, I literally this week I've been so exhausted that I just, like, my brain is so numb to everything because of the burnout that I'm just like, I don't know what burnout is, but I'm burnt out. Like, I don't know. I literally am so tired that I can't even, like, define what I'm feeling at that moment.
All right, I have a question. So, is your burnout primarily related to your job, your day job, or have you had burnout in the shop? Or is it spillover from your job and that burnout wipes out your creativity after hours?
I'm trying to think. A little bit. To be honest, I don't think I've had burnout in the shop because I spend so little time in it these days. Like, the part that stresses me out more is not being able to spend enough time in it, and also, like, not having access to tools, or things aren't set up enough. That stresses me out more than actually the, like, being in the shop. And obviously there's times, like, so I'm someone who really enjoys working through complexity and through problems. Like, that is what I really like doing, both in my job and if I'm figuring out a design for myself. It's self-inflicted, and there's parts of that I enjoy. So I wouldn't say that I've burnt out too much creatively in the woodworking sense. It's just there have been times where I've been frustrated. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't call that burnout, though. No.
Okay. And Eric, I have a question for you about creative. We're talking about creative burnout in the shop. You're a full-time maker, right? And it's almost like you need creativity on demand, COD, right? You hit that button, you have to be creative on demand. You don't have the luxury of waiting for inspiration. Sometimes you have commissions. How do you deal with creativity on demand when you're feeling burnt out?
Oh, well, if I have to, if I have to produce, I'm deep in it enough. I've been doing it long enough where I have a bag of tricks, and it works because I have a visual language, Sorry? Cocaine mostly. Definitely a little bit of that book of sugar goes a long way.
We're in Philly, there's a crisis that's happening.
Philly's got a great local strain of Coke it's unbeatable. It really gets the job done.
Oh my God.
No. Never touch this stuff. That's white magic. Won't ever go down that road. No, I can produce on demand, but that's part of what's draining about it is that, like, if you listen, I don't want to. I feel like our audience isn't necessarily Swifties, so I can maybe dunk on Tay a little bit.
Excuse me, I'm a Swiftie.
Listen. I know. I'm not saying she's not great at what she does. All right, she's a fantastic storyteller, but every story is put over the same chord structure.
Yeah, I mean that.
Right?
Yes,
that's pop music.
Yes.
And so there comes a point, and I'm sure she'll hit that, but maybe not because she's making billions of dollars doing it. But I feel like there comes a point where you go, like, isn't there another fucking chord progression? Like, I could keep doing this and making money and it will work, but is it interesting to me individually?
So needing to change it up a little bit.
It's the need to change it up, and it's the need to, like, keep something sacred. So there is, I think that's why I jumped on the patio this week, is it's this thing of, like, I needed to have some outlet and figure out some problem, like Mary was talking about, find some creative solution to a situation that didn't belong to anybody but me. There is this thing of, like, I love this thing so much, and I love this ability to problem solve and to think creatively and to create that when it gets sold every time, it starts to feel disingenuous, and it needs to have some kind of, I need to have some kind of re-input to re-edify myself.
So, Eric, this reminds me, you told me previously that you've been reaching into your bag of tricks because you didn't really have the mental space, or you felt exhausted creatively. So you couldn't come up with something new, which is what you really wanted, because you want to challenge yourself. You want to extend yourself, what you're capable of. But you keep reaching into your previous bag of tricks as a means to satisfy the deadline. But that's not satisfying to you as an artist.
Well, it's a means to satisfy the deadline, but it's also just a lack of bandwidth, right? Like when there's 7 things on your mind at all times, you can't focus on
This sounds
any
like
one thing.
our episode on boredom and creativity, by the way.
Yeah, no, it's
Yeah,
very much linked.
That's my question to you when you were when you were describing the burnout downstairs. You were saying like, or I was asking you like, is it burnout or is it lack of time? I guess.
And I don't know how to differentiate the two, right? This is part of why I wanted to bring this question to you two, because there is this component of, if you constantly are just busy, eventually you burn out. But is it frustration with being busy all the time, or is it genuine burnout?
For me, it's different. I like being busy. I like always doing something. I guess personally, I would not say that burnout equals lack of time for me. Burnout that I'm experiencing now is more just like if I had more time, which I technically do, I think I would still be feeling the same way. It's just exhaustion.
Sure, but I like to keep myself busy as well, but I don't mean busy necessarily mentally. Like, for example, laying a patio, I don't have to think about that. It's just doing the thing. It's manual labor. And there is a mental boredom that happens there. That, and I don't want to say boredom. Maybe that has a negative connotation, and I don't mean to take away from folks who are doing the work day in and day out, and that takes real craftsmanship. But there is, when you know how to do it, you can do it without thinking.
Eric, that relates to an article I read about production turners. I've mentioned this on the podcast before, that when you're roughing out 1,000 bowls, because you don't really, it doesn't really take much, it doesn't take a lot of your conscious thinking because you've done it 1,000 times. It gives you time in the back of your mind to think about other things.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like, listen, you've lived in your house for how many years?
18.
18 years. You can get up and walk from your bed to the bathroom in the middle of the night without turning a goddamn light on. You know exactly where everything is. You're not going to stub a goddamn toe.
This is true.
Yeah, because because it's happened so many times. It's rote memorization.
Yeah. And
so you can do that and maintain some level of just like, I'm still asleep. And that's what happens when you do that kind of work. It's this physical thing that's happening, and it frees your mind to do other things.
Yeah.
And I think that's really
Go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
I think that's really important to have from time to time, is this space to do a thing. I think for me, it's really important. This space to do a thing where you're still creating, but it's not mentally taxing.
Okay, Eric, let me play devil's advocate with you, because you and I like to do this to each other. You gave yourself one.
I'll tell you to fuck off.
And by the way, with your example of walking in the dark to the bathroom, you occasionally do miss the bowl, just FYI.
Oh, sure. Sure. That's why I sit down when the lights are off. Man. Come on, that's 101.
Oh my God.
Okay,
Oh
but
my God.
sorry, Mary. To play devil's advocate, you gave yourself one fucking day off the clock. Is that enough to ameliorate the burnout?
No. Of course not. Of course not. And I recognize that, but it is it's giving yourself a moment to breathe, to figure out what the next steps are. And so I've already decided I'm going to reinstate the month off this summer and probably do a road trip. I don't know if it'll be a full coast to coast road trip, but it'll be at least a moment, because I think it really is important to give yourself that span of time to get into like the reason I drive, the reason I like those road trips is because the first like 3 or 4 days, you're like, this sucks. Like, I hate being in a car for 8 hours a day. But then by like the end of the first week, you just sit there with your thought, like podcasts are null and void. You've listened to the same fucking Chris Stapleton song 772 times and you're just over it. And you're just like, I'm just going to sit in silence for 6 hours while I drive. And you're in the plains of Oklahoma, so there's nothing to look at. And you just sit there with yourself and with your thoughts, and ideas come, and revelations, self-revelations come. And I think that space to get into that mindset is equally as important as giving yourself just a single day, to enjoy some goddamn sunshine.
I love that you do the road trips, to be honest.
Can we go to Falling Water?
Oh, we're going to Falling Water.
We gotta go camping.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to come?
Yeah, I kind of do.
Yeah.
That sounds lovely.
Podcast
let's
camping
go.
road trip.
Oh, do we do an on-site pod?
Yeah. Did we just
We go camping in Allegheny, and we do a little on-site
That would be
road
so
trip.
fun.
Yeah, the ambient noise of the waterfall going, just the babbling brook.
Yeah.
while we
That
record a
sounds
pod.
so fun.
Spearfishing in the background.
Spearfishing in the background.
Spearfishing.
It just became Lord of the Flies real quick.
What the fuck?
This is how I camp.
Spearfishing?
She was like, "You want to wrestle a moose?"
Mary,
There's
they
only
have
one
too
way
many,
to camp.
Mary, they have too many
No
ticks.
relaxation.
Hey, there's an app for that now. Don't worry, it's
Oh
fine.
my God. All right. So here we are. We've talked about burnout. We've defined burnout. We've talked about occasionally what you do. Let's actually refocus to and I'm sure our listeners, actually, let me ask our listeners to pause for a moment, because I like that we do that. Some podcasts eliminate silence. I enjoy it. It gives you time to think about what was said. So I'll ask the question, are you burnt out? Do you feel exhausted? Are you cynical and detached? And has your performance suffered? Mary's nodding yes to all three. So to the listeners, I'm curious, what percentage of you are detached? I wish we could take a poll somehow and see what the results are. Anyway,
Let's put up an Instagram poll.
Okay, we'll do that. Second of all, that begs the question: how do you solve it? Now we started anecdotally asking, how do you solve it? So I have a list that I've taken from various sources, but maybe you guys can say first, and then we'll do the list after. So Eric, you're saying time off, time to regroup. You took a day. Mary, Eric, please. What else?
Yeah, I don't have the answer for that. It's just something I would like to know. So for me, there's like the ultimate solution of, like, I guess, extreme solution of taking time off, and like a lot of time off. And a lot of people actually in tech have to do that because they get burnt out. But like what I want to know, and I don't have the actual answer, is like, how do you mitigate it in smaller steps so that you don't have to reach that point of like, I'm just so burnt out that I need to take an extended period of time? Like, are there solutions that you can do in the meantime? And I'm sure there are. And like, how do you force yourself to do those?
Great.
I think that's an interesting question. Point. And I don't know that I have an answer to that. But I think that goes along with the point that I wanted to bring up about Paul. And I know this was a definition, but the lumping of cynical and detached, I want to separate those two, because maybe this is the defense mechanism that I've developed over the years, but I can detach without becoming cynical. And the detachment happens because I love this fucking thing so much that I want to protect it and just kind of like hold it in this space. And while a day is not enough time to really sit with it, it is enough time to give it a moment and just say like, yeah, this thing deserves a moment.
Yeah.
And then that hopefully forces my hand to continue to sit with it, to figure out the next steps. But I think that is that protective mechanism of saying like, no, y'all don't get to take this thing that I love so much. It's a thing that I'm not going to stop doing. So let's figure out how to not become cynical about it by detaching.
Eric, you're very thoughtful. That's an excellent answer. I love how you separated this. Like, I know.
It's the whiskey,
I
buddy.
love. I love to shit on Eric. I do. I love to give him a hard time, but I can't. You're so very thoughtful about this thing you love. It's awesome. That was a great point. Mary, I love what you said, because you're like, how do I not go to the extreme? How can I take baby steps towards solving this? So I'm going to read to you a very anecdotal list of solutions. It's partly informed by research, but partly from, people's anecdotes, and you guys can react to them. Number one, you take a break. And it doesn't have to be a long. Eric took 1 day, which solved nothing. But Mary, you're talking about taking. Sorry, Mary, you're talking about taking an extended break, which is pretty extreme. But taking a break is obviously the first answer. Number two, you replenish your battery by doing something different. Variety.
I mean, I definitely do that for sure, which is woodworking.
Variety is the spice of life, right? And my most appreciative and days full of gratitude are when I have part science, part woodworking, part family, part me time, part nature. You know what I mean? Where you just have a little bit of everything. It feels so good. Number three, focus on enjoying the process rather than thinking about the destinations all the time, like the ultimate goals, because the ultimate goals can be very daunting and very large and very long term. But if you just sort of break it down into like, what is my mini goal today? Process, enjoy just doing the thing today, as opposed to like, oh, I need that episode out by Friday. Mm-hmm. I guess that kind of breaks it up into steps, and just kind of say,
well, and I think that it allows you to appreciate what you've accomplished in any given moment. So, for example, if we go back to the patio example, I had solutions to what I wanted the flooring to be and how I was going to create seating out there. Right? That was it. That's all I had. Now, some people will be like, well, we can't figure out a patio until we have everything figured out. I literally took a piece of wood that I had in the basement, screwed it to the fence, my neighbor's fence, and then created a gate. And it looks janky as fuck. Like, it looks so stupid, but it functions. And the rest of it gave me a space to sit outside and be in the sunshine while I sit down and eat lunch or drink a cup of coffee in the morning. And that was all that mattered. And I'll figure out the fence later on. So that's part of just appreciating the process of this is where it's at right now, and it's good enough for this moment. And then when I come up with a solution for that particular situation, then I can venture down that road.
I like it. Yeah. Good example. Number four, and Mary, this one I'm going to be watching your face. Set healthy boundaries.
I'm so healthy. I don't know what you guys are talking about. Yeah, I mean, I am aware. I like to think I'm a pretty self-aware person. I know that it's not healthy boundaries. It's just, it's all self-inflicted.
So I'm curious. Are you aware of how many times you've checked your Apple Watch this episode? Because I am.
Snap.
Yeah.
No.
Snap. Have I checked it a lot?
Healthy boundaries. And listen, this is not to toot my own horn, because I struggle with boundaries as well. But my phone is on airplane mode over there right now. And I've seen you 3 different times look at the text messages come in the 38 minutes we've been recording this episode.
Excuse me. One was not a text message. One was my cat pooping, and my my phone notified me.
And one was a booty call, so that doesn't count either, right?
Well, 2 were booty calls if you count the cat pooping.
I mean, okay, you're not wrong. To get back to the conversation. Yes, the self-awareness thing, I guess that kicks in after a while. It is correct that it's something that you have to, that you just aren't aware of for a while until, I don't know, something brings it to your attention. I guess when you pointed out even in February around my birthday, you were like, hey, you doing okay? Because
I worry about you, buddy.
Mary. We've talked about you other times. I'm like, is she okay? I've been texting Eric. I'm like, is she all right?
Just a little busy. But I mean, it's nice to have those moments of realization from people being like, oh, I got to like step back and rethink about myself.
Mary,
Is
what's
that
one
helpful?
Oh, go ahead, Eric. Yep, go ahead, Eric.
So I'm wondering genuinely, is that helpful for you? Because I think this is different for individuals. Is it helpful for you when people do reach out and say like, "Hey, I'm just making sure you're okay"? Does that help you realign? And I suppose I'm asking more for like Paul and I to be your friends, but also I'm just genuinely curious. Like, does that help you realign your values or have some other input to recognize the situation?
I think it helps because I'm not the most introspective person, and I don't love to think about myself too much. So I think it does help. When it gets to a point where I'm like truly exhausted, and that's like when I reach a point where like, all right, I gotta like see what I've been doing and like make some changes if possible. If I can't make the changes, at least identify what has been the problem. So that at least is a step for me. But I do think it helps when I hear people ask, like when you asked if I was okay, like I don't think I had even processed it at that point because it only just been like a few weeks, and it's just like, oh, like I didn't even realize I was acting any different.
See, I think for me, it's not helpful when people ask. Not that I don't care that people ask. Like I appreciate my friends who are,
I
who
will
are
never
checking in on me.
check in on you
But,
ever again.
but what I mean is, I don't think I'm self-aware enough. Like if you were to be like, "Are you okay?"
Yeah.
I'd be like, "Yeah, I'm fine."
Yeah.
Like there's not, that doesn't ring the bell for me to like make sure that I'm okay.
Mm-hmm.
Eric, are
Paul?
you okay? Eric, you okay?
I'm doing great, buddy.
Are we all
Thanks,
okay?
Paul, are you okay?
I'm better than okay. Mary, what's one healthy boundary you think you could set that would help with your burnout?
Well, over the past week, with the exception of one night, or past 2 weeks, I've been straight up stopping working at 5 and going into the shop. Like what is oh, it's the stupid Mac thing. Sorry. Yeah, and like I've just been going to the shop every night. Even if there's nothing for me to do, I'm just like organizing, cleaning, because we don't have 220 yet, so there's nothing I can actually make. That has been like I think a good boundary.
Excellent. Good. Eric, do you have a boundary you could set?
Well, I mean, similarly, and I know this is like my place of work, so it's not quite the same, but because the last month has been so travel heavy and I haven't been in the shop. The other day, a similar kind of thing. I just was just like, I'm going in the shop. I spent the day just organizing shit, like, refixing jigs and fixtures that needed updating, cleaning the place up. Larissa and I had a couple of whiskeys and we were just catching up because we haven't hung out in 3 or so weeks. So I think there is that thing of I'm just going to give myself the space to attend to my space rather than focus on the deadlines and the emails and everything else that are coming in.
Good.
What about you?
Well, I'm not frequently burnt out these days, so I don't really have a problem with healthy boundaries.
All right.
Oh, Mr. Perfect here.
I remember when I was great at everything.
It's no. I have other problems. Just burnout's not one of them. Okay, so the last three that people mentioned was seek nature, and Eric, your drive sounds just like seeking nature. You spend a lot of time in nature. Something about nature just speaks to the human soul. Obviously, biologically, it makes sense. Being outside, get out of your house, get out of your office, be with nature. It seems to have this amazing calming effect and recentering effect. Someone mentioned cleaning.
That's big.
Cleaning
for me.
Up helps them like recenter themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. You guys feel that?
That's a big one for me because I think it comes like similar to seeking nature. Like it is this simplification of things, and it's not allowing all of the noise and the chaos and the stress to impede upon your space.
Mary Kondo,
what matters in that moment, and what matters in that moment is just doing the basic human needs. And for me, that activity of cleaning is very I stress clean 100%.
Yeah, I do the same. I think I definitely clean, but in addition to cleaning, I blast Taylor Swift.
I don't do that.
Or not Taylor Swift. Like
No,
I blast.
I just hotbox my kitchen.
I
but it's fine.
that is also valid. But I always blast music that I can dance to when I'm cleaning. So that's
Okay, all right.
a good stress reliever. I mean, it's along the same veins of like I go on a run or something. That is
Mary,
also very helpful.
That's
so.
the last one. That's the 7th thing that someone mentioned is exercise. It just seems to like
I mean,
relax
of course,
you.
endorphins.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, we've listed seven possible like solutions to burnout. Mary, so funny enough, you said, is there something I could do that wouldn't require an extended leave of absence? And we just listed 7 things you could do, but you seem to have already known all 7 of them. So are you looking outside those 7 for some like new magical 8th solution?
I don't know. I mean, maybe. I think like I do a lot of them.
You do.
I just
You exercise.
I don't
you
know.
you have like you have a workout regime, right? You clean. Do you seek nature?
Oh man. Not as much as I would like to. Like when I go on a run, I usually try to go along the river or whatever. I will say the one thing since moving to Philly from San Francisco, like that's the thing that I miss the most.
All right, we get it.
I miss running, like going to the ocean or going to the Presidio every day.
I used to just walk out my door and there would be a forest of redwood trees, and now I have to drive 15 minutes.
Well, that's the thing. I would like to have the time to drive to nature. I just don't have it in the day.
All right. With that, we're at the 46 minute mark. I feel like we've described burnout. We've talked about the theoretical axes of it, and we've gone through some solutions that we all have tried and literature suggests. So why don't we move on to our next segment, which is a rarity for us. It's the first time ever. We're actually going to
First time, long time?
Yeah, first time, long time. It's the first time we're actually going to cover a technical issue on this podcast. Ugh. What is the world coming to?
So goddamn boring.
Oh, God. We just lost half our listener base. We're going to talk about... Oh, it hurt. I'm having trouble choking out the words.
Finishing, Paul. It's fine.
We're going to talk about finishing. But we're not going to do it like, oh, you should use 3 cups of this and 1 cup of that. We're going to talk about the pros and cons from like different points of view, not how to apply it, not how to get the best sheen, blah, 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 blah. We're going to talk about like what matters for conservation, toxicity, longevity, like those kinds of hot, things that are lesser talked about. So, so
if you're worried about longevity, the key is hydration. You got to hydrate if you're going to finish.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. Okay. So
that's not what I said. I stand by it.
We're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about finishing wood. No,
we're going to talk about No, try to get through this without making a dick joke, Paul. Go for it, buddy. It's fine.
Okay, finishes. We're going to talk about finishing pieces of furniture and woodworking, Eric.
Naturally.
Eric, since you actually recorded an episode all on finishing, do you want to lead off? And then all of us will attack you?
Oh, please. I would love to. Put myself on the crucifix.
What's your favorite finish and why?
The finish I use most often is a mix of oil, urethane, and turpentine, which is unpopular. You can use mineral spirits as well.
I call bullshit on that already. Go.
The one that I use most often?
No, I'm just.
You call bullshit on it?
No, I'm just kidding. So, what is it a mix of again? Say it again.
It's essentially a variation on the Malou finish. It's oil, urethane, turpentine. So it's a medium, a film builder, and a thinner, and it allows me to create a wipe-on poly, basically, that has all of the benefits of a film building finish with all of the ease of application of a wipe-on finish. Okay. Now, for conservation and for low VOC, this is not your jam. This is a high VOC, not easily reversed finish. So it has its limitations. But when you apply it, you get a really lovely sheen that is coming up through the wood rather than sitting on top of the wood. And it is a thing that is essentially bomb-proof. So when you're finishing pieces for clients, and they want to have a thing that their kid can say it's a dining table, and they want to, they sit at this, and the kid's going to beat it up for the next 15 years. They want to finish. Like, most clients don't care about whether it's going to be repairable in 100 years because they're paying you money for them to use it for the next 50.
Sure.
And this is the trouble. This is the trouble. Well, it is short-sighted, but understand.
No.
Like, listen,
I'm just joking.
If you're paying 10 grand for a piece, and then they're like, "Hey, this is great. The finish is going to suck for you, but in 100 years, some old white guy is going to love to repair it."
The finish doesn't suck for them. It just demands more of you, Eric.
Okay, so give me an example of a finish that is more easily repairable and lower VOC and easily conserved, that is not less durable.
That is, well,
that's the trade-off, isn't it?
Okay, yeah, but okay. So the answer is shellac. The answer is shellac. You know that was the answer.
Shellac, of course, is the answer until somebody spills a bottle of scotch on it.
Okay, I'm not sure how many people are drinking scotch around their whatever, but yeah, if it's a table,
their dining table.
So sorry. Let's hit timeout because as you can probably tell, Eric and I have already covered this territory. All right, so let's be Eric. Let's pretend as if this is the first time we've talked about it.
Okay.
Shellac is a wonderful, timeless, classic finish. Everything you see in museums is pretty much covered in shellac. It's a naturally occurring resin produced by bugs on a tree. It's non-toxic. It's reversible. It's easily repaired. The conservationists love it. It can be brushed. It can be sprayed. It can be patted. Go ahead, Eric.
It's easily repaired by people who know what they're doing.
Yes.
But if you give this to a client, let's just use a dining table as a universal example of something that's going to get the shit kicked out of it.
I would never use shellac on a dining room table.
Exactly. This is the issue.
Okay. But for everything else other than dining tables, I use shellac for everything. Okay. So sorry, we haven't finished yet. You interrupted me. How rude of you. So shellac, you don't hear a lot about it because there's no companies pushing it. No companies are getting rich off shellac. You don't have like the guerrilla marketing campaigns that you see for some of these hard wax oil. Everyone's, they're offering money to everyone. Nobody's offering money to anyone to espouse the benefits of shellac except like tried and true, long time makers, fine furniture makers, conservationists. Everyone knows that that's the finish. It's like there's no options. And you can even make it, when you buy it at the big box stores, it's dissolved in nasty denatured alcohol, which has methanol, which can cause blindness if you drink it. Obviously.
Love methanol. So good.
And other additives. You can actually just dissolve shellac flakes. You can buy them as flake, and you can dissolve it in your favorite thing that you and Mary know a lot about, which is Everclear grain alcohol.
That got me through college, buddy.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. So I show up like a good alcoholic to my local liquor store and I buy a case of Everclear and they fucking look at me. I get looks. I'm not kidding.
They're like, sir, are you okay? Spiritually.
They look at me like, why are you buying fucking cases of like 2-liter bottles of 95? So it's 95% ethanol. And the reason I do that is because if you buy pure ethanol, 100%, it's lab grade and it's very expensive. But 95% ethanol, which is Everclear, that 5%, I don't know what it is. It's probably water or some other distillation products. But anyway,
flavor.
It doesn't flavor. It doesn't bother the shellac one fucking bit. You dissolve the flakes in that. You can spray it. You can drink it. You can do anything you want because it's non-toxic shellac mixed in non-toxic alcohol. Well, alcohol is by definition toxic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is Everclear curious? Is Everclear cheaper than denatured?
No. I don't think
because
so.
Denatured is cheaper because they put the chemicals in it so they don't have to pay the liquor tax.
Denatured is not allowed everywhere. I couldn't get it in California.
Really?
You
can't get anything
it's
in
illegal
California.
There.
Yeah, it's not good. If you're spraying, I spray shellac now on everything. And if you're spraying it, you're inhaling all that mist. That's a lot of methanol and other products you do not want to be inhaling. So I buy shellac flake, dissolve it in Everclear, and you're good to go. You don't have to worry one bit about toxicity. The finish can be reversed, repaired, anything you want. Brush it, pat it. Okay, so I love shellac. I've been using it for many years. However, Eric, let's talk to your point. It's reversed by alcohol. So if you put it on a table where there's alcoholic drinks, you're fucked. Don't put it on tables.
This is so the table that we're sitting at right now, I finished with Chemvar, which is the nastiest of conversion varnishes. It feels like shit. It looks like shit, but it will not dissolve for anything on the fucking planet. And so this is the thing of like, I was spraying that in a booth for 3 days. I probably took a good year off my life, but also like this has been my work desk. It was my dining table for probably 3 years. Like this thing's not going anywhere.
What did you put on your dining table? No.
That's the urethane mix.
Okay.
By the way, we need to get to how you feel about being allergic to Rubio, but we'll get there in a moment.
All right, we'll get there in just a second. So Eric, actually, my go-to finish for all tabletops is the General Finishes oil plus urethane. So it's basically what you're using.
So it's essentially that minus the turpentine, which, if you want to cut down on the VOCs, that's the way to go.
Yeah. Okay, now we're going to turn to Mary, who's deathly allergic to one of these finishes. We're going to talk about the hard wax oils, which is basically a mixture of a bunch of different oils with wax and a solvent. Mary, would you like to lead off on the hard wax, your experience?
Yeah. I mean, I typically actually use Osmo because I have found that it's easy to apply, and I like how easy it is to apply. Plus, it's fast for me. But yeah, I am like very allergic to Rubio, which I'm not allergic to anything in my life except apparently this. It's the
Is it
the accelerator?
It's the accelerator.
Yeah.
It's not.
I have used Part A by itself, and that's fine. It is the accelerator specifically, and I don't know what it is in there. I'm not the only person who's allergic to it, but it gives me, and it's not like contact. It is literally, I don't know, Paul, what the right word is, like the fumes, I guess.
Yeah,
so anything that is not
vapor.
exposed, the vapor. I break out in such bad hives that I had to go to the doctor for like steroids. Like as soon as they saw me, they're like, "Oh, you need something." So it's like, it's literal hell. Like it's so itchy. It's really bad hives, and I don't have that reaction to anything else in my life. So I don't know what it is. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I like the Rubio finish. Like I think it feels really nice when it's applied. I just can't do it.
Well, let's talk about what the finish is. Well, let's talk about what the finish is, right? It's an oil, and it's a wax, and then it's an accelerator, right? And those what the accelerator is doing is it's hastening the cross-linking between the oil molecules, like the fatty chain.
Obviously,
oils are collections of fatty acid chain molecules that have to get cross-linked to one another through bonding, and when they do, oh my god, you guys are so fucking rude.
You're a fucking science nerd, bro. Cross-link the fatty chain acids, man.
If the oils, when the oil's not cross-linked, it's liquid. When it cross-links, it gets hard. How's that?
Obviously it does. Obviously. That's 101.
I cross-link all the time.
So
this is where we go off the rails.
Okay, sorry, go on.
The accelerator is hastening the oxidation cross-linking, right? And that's the purpose of it. So it dries real quack. What is it?
Too much alcohol.
It quacks real good, brother.
No, you guys are like confusing. You're like you're distracting me.
It's not used to being made fun of in a science context.
The oil
usually we listen very straight.
The oil dries real fast from the accelerator. It hastens the cross-linking. Now, oils can cross-link without the accelerator, but with oxygen, right? Just oxidation. That's like your Osmo, right? Your Osmo is in mineral spirits or odorless mineral spirits. As that flashes off, you get the cross-linking. Fine, it doesn't have an accelerator. So the accelerator actually belongs to a fairly toxic group of compounds. It hastens the cross-linking, but as a negative, it some people react to it. The hard wax oils are nice, right? Because they have that depth of color of the oil, and they have a layer of wax that like drives real hard on top. So they're good utilitarian finishes, but they're a conservation nightmare in the future.
I believe that.
Because it's how do you remove both the wax and the oil?
Well, and I recognize that my finished mixture is similar, right? Because ultimately it's a plasticized finish on top of a piece of wood. But what I'm doing is I'm thinning that out so that plasticizer sits within the top layer of pores. Mm-hmm. So that is a conservation nightmare.
It is,
and it's not a thing. It's a thing that I think about relatively often, trying to figure out if there is a way to work around that. But again, when clients are paying you money to have a piece that they can enjoy for their lifetime, they want to enjoy. They don't give a shit what happens 100 years
but Eric,
from now.
It depends on the item. If it's a table, I agree with you 100%. I use urethane
of course,
too.
Listen. For boxes, I'm using a soap finish. I'm using shellac, like sure.
Yeah.
But for the things that are going to get the shit kicked out of them,
I agree.
There a solution that actually works that's not a Danish oil, which also has plasticizers in them? Yeah. Or a boiled linseed oil, which I'm going to tell a client you have to apply once a year for the next 50 years. Like, nobody's going to do that.
Yeah.
So what's the solution?
Yeah, the solution is to pick judiciously what finish you pick based on the use case, right?
Yeah.
Which is what you do. And I guess there's this whole class of...
Oh, I was just kind of curious. Do you know like those UV finishes that are starting to become popular now? Like what's the deal with those?
Ugh. I think the UV light hastens the cross-linking instead of a chemical catalyst, is my understanding.
Oh,
but it's the same problem then.
Yeah, it's going to be unconservationable. It's just like it's a disaster for conservation like 100 years from now. And most of the pieces I make, I mean, I'm a weird case because I'm getting asked to make very like heirloomy, like super passed on to your grandchildren type items. I always use shellac and I always use hide glue. All of that can be conservation, like, repaired and restored without damaging the item because that's my use case. But if it was a dining room table, there's no fucking way I'm using that. So I think, that's Mary, to answer your question, it's use case based.
What do we know about those nano finishes? Because I don't trust them.
Like atom thick, whatever.
I don't trust them at all.
Well, Keith used
aren't they used historically on cars? That's like the ceramic finish that they put on cars, and it's so it's supposed to.
Yeah, cars last 20 years.
Yeah.
You guys, I've looked it up. I've had a real hard time finding a lot of chemistry about them. Like, I don't really know. In fact,
so shellac is the answer?
Well, no. What I'll say is there's many, many, many finishes, convernish and varnish finishes, ceramic nano, and all these other finishes that I don't think we know what the story is over 100 years. We just have no way to know yet.
Sure.
Were you thinking like shellac with the nano on top of it? So it's like
I'm just curious about them because I know that people are using them, and this is part of the Luddite in me. Is I see something like that and I go, that's gonna be the next what is it? What are the forever chemicals?
PFAS.
PFAS. Yeah. Like those are gonna be the next PFAS, right? Like 100 years from now, people are gonna be like, what the fuck were you thinking? Mm-hmm. I could be wrong. It's a feeling I have.
I'll let you know. I'll still be around.
Oh my God. So, what's our summary? Can we like roll this out? Each of us gets a summary statement. Eric, what's your summary on finishing? Like, where does all this shake out for you?
God damn, that's a hard question to answer. The way it shakes out is, I love traditional finishes, oil-based finishes, shellac-based finishes, but I also realize that the application or the case use for my clients is often difficult to sell them on a high-maintenance finish for a thing that's going to be, beat up. A chair, a table, a cabinet, etc. So I almost hate to admit it, but there comes a point where you just have to say, I need to like pay my mortgage, and therefore I need to give the client what they want.
Good answer.
And that's a real shitty way to go about a lot of things, but in this case, I feel like it's applicable.
Okay, I like that answer, Mary.
I'm not as well versed in finishes as you. I just use what I know I like. Like I go through things that I trial, yeah, and then the ones that I use are general finishes, Osmo, and I need to be able to apply it easily and fast. That's my priority. So I don't know. As long as it doesn't give me like a severe allergic reaction, that would be great too. A mild one, maybe that's okay. But no, I just have the ones that I fall back on every time. If I like try branching out, sometimes it's okay. But I don't know. I have ones I like.
Well, Mary, that speaks to the point that finishing is its own field of study, honestly, besides
really
woodworking,
is.
right? Yeah, it's
It
a
really
lot.
is.
All right, my summary
Paul?
statement is, shellac all the way on every project except dining room tables because it's non-toxic and it can always be fixed easily in the future, which preserves the piece. It's that simple.
It's fair. So what do you use on
Once
dining room tables then?
the oil and urethane. And once in a
Yeah,
while, I'll
okay.
just use Osmo, which is the oil and wax, just for like
Yeah.
simple, quickie, things that you don't expect to like live for centuries. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I hope you enjoyed our first technical segment ever. We've tried to always keep this about the philosophical side of woodworking and making, but we thought, once in a while we can throw in a little technical segment. And we tried to speak to larger issues about toxicity and conservation. A quick thank you to our patrons since the last episode. We have Aaron Wood, Luke Emmerich, Scotty Walsh, which Mary, Scott. Yeah.
Scotty!
All right. Maris.
All right.
Maris.
He's great. I love him.
Good. It's great. I wish I knew him too.
That's great.
It's great for you. I don't know him yet. Scott, reach out to me, buddy. We're going to be friends.
You know him too.
I know. A little bit.
We also have Marisol Beck, and last but not least, Phil Evans. And Phil, funny enough, invited me to give a design talk coming up about a month from now at Lexington Arts in Lexington, Massachusetts. And Phil and I have become fast friends, and he became our patron. So thanks, Phil.
Okay, Uncle Phil. Right on.
Yeah, I appreciate the invite to talk about design. A lot of my talk is going to come from these podcast episodes, thanks to you and Mary, obviously.
You're welcome.
Okay. With that, I think that concludes this episode. God, we went long today. It's 1 hour and 7.
Damn right.
You guys are so full of shit. I couldn't keep you.
That's
all right.
Listen, woodworking is all about bullshit, buddy.
All right, everyone. Well, thanks for tuning in. I hope you liked our discussion about burnout. I hope it helps you as you think about your own personal case scenario. And if you are finishing woodworking, I hope this gave you some food for thought. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you in the after show.
What is our after show question?
Oh, what? Oh, sorry, I forgot.
You just gonna not leave him with a cliffhanger on there?
Oh, Jesus Christ, Eric. Okay,
damn, bro.
So we're gonna answer 2 questions each, and we're gonna guess each other's answers first. First of all, who's your favorite woodworking content creator?
I know, Mary.
Second of all,
easy.
I feel like this is going to be a racial thing here.
There's 2 answers, and one of them is not racial, but now you made it racial.
Everything's about race with Mary. Sorry, Mary. And the second question is, what's your favorite genre outside of woodworking, Mary? Porn.
Also know that answer.
I'm very uncomfortable. What?
We're going to talk about this later. Bye.
Okay, bye.